These are live visuals coming in from India's new Parliament building. We just moments ago saw the MPs moving from the old building to the new one. This is day two of the special Parliament session that is currently happening in India's capital, New Delhi. Earlier in the day, we saw visuals of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading MPs from the old Parliament building to the new one, and now day two of the session is underway. Prime Minister Modi made an impassioned speech about New India and the progress made so far, India emerging as a voice of the global south. And once again, these are live visuals coming in of the new Parliament building, where MPs from both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have gathered in the central hall, and House proceedings are now happening in the new Parliament House. This is the second day of the ongoing special session, and it marks the first time that the House proceedings are taking place in the new Parliament building. It was earlier inaugurated by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in May this year. We earlier saw that before they shifted to the new premises, members of both houses posed for a group photograph at the old building. And they later gathered in the central hall, and we saw senior leaders gathering for one last photo off before moving to the new Parliament building. Joining us now is our correspondent Siddhant Sibal with the latest. Siddhant, help us understand the significance of this and also the fact that there is a new Parliament building and a highly anticipated special session that is now underway.
Well, today, of course, is a momentous day, of course, where the new Parliament is inaugurated with the legislators there. And we know that Prime Minister has a way of doing things. Remember when he entered the Parliament, the old Parliament building as the Prime Minister in 2014, he entered while prostrating, and we know that today we saw him walking along with lawmakers, making it memorable and wanting to assimilate and let every moment of this tradition sink in. So essentially a big occasion, and we saw the speech of the Prime Minister, and essentially he laying out the vision of what is expected and essentially talking about the Indian government's policies. He mentioned about when it comes to the foreign policy aspect, the Indian side focusing on voice of the global south, and along with the Indian Prime Minister, we saw the Vice President and other top leaders also present. Today is, remember, the second day of the special session of the Indian Parliament, which is taking place in the new Parliament building. Yesterday we saw the last day in the old Parliament building, where the Indian Prime Minister talked about the various initiatives taken by his government and paid homage to the previous Prime Ministers, including Jawaharlal Nehru. And today, of course, while the day is focusing on the opening of the new Parliament session, there's still 3 days left where, of course, focus shifts on passage of key bills. Now, there are murmurs of the women's reservation bill being taken up. We saw a tweet yesterday which was deleted, but essentially that will be key in terms of a long-standing demand when it comes to many in the country. And now we also know that the government has given a whip to many of its, or in fact all of its MPs to be in the Parliament. That indicates at passage of key bills. So all in all, an important day today, and next 3 days will be more important as government is keen to push on passage of legislation, but also giving a new direction to where the country goes.
Right, Siddhant, very quickly, also help us understand the Prime Minister's statement. He earlier said that his aim is to make India a developed country by 2047.
Well, yes, this is something that has been a focus area. We know that the Indian government has been saying the Amrit Kal has started. It was a term that came into being a few years ago, and under the Amrit Kal, the focus is to achieve the status of a developed country by 2047, 100 years since the independence of India, and the 25-year period. This is a long-term vision of the Indian government to boost up plans from education to agriculture, and for that we have seen various ministries working in tandem with each other. And we have already seen in terms of diplomacy, this is something that we will like to hear and focus on, is that how India is now trying to push above its weight when it comes to UN reforms. At the G20, we saw how India was seen as a key country that is willing to shape global narrative from global south, getting a voice to, of course, focusing on the UN reform. Now, UN General Assembly, the general debate begins from today, and we know that the Indian External Affairs Minister will be addressing next week. So we can get more hints as to how India plans to go forward when it comes to its foreign policy in the Amritkal, but essentially politically, domestically, this is a period that is expected to see rapid evolution, not only in various sectors, but also reforms in various sectors, from education to agriculture, from financial markets to passage of key legislation.
Right. Let's decode some more statements from the Prime Minister. He also said that this coming session is small, but in terms of time, it is very big. It is a session of historic decisions. That's also a very important statement.
Well, correct. It is just a 5-day session. It's a special session of the Indian Parliament, and rarely we have seen special sessions being called. I remember a special session being called for the passage of the nuclear deal way back in 2008, and now, of course, this special session is being called, and the focus of the government is to make history and also instill the focus in the legislators that this is a 5-day period that will see momentous decisions,
right.
Not only the emergence of the movement of the legislators to a new parliament building, but also passage of key laws. There's an element of surprise, of course, as to what these bills will be taken, will be talked about. But all in all, the focus will be to shape India's future in the next 25 years. That's the Amrit Kal.
Right, absolutely. Siddhant, thank you so much for those inputs, and thanks for joining us on WION at this hour.